Hi everyone, it's Elaine Hamilton from the Reiki Center. This session we're going to talk about emotions and shadow work. Yay! Love a bit of shadow work. So it's something that comes up quite a lot as I'm working with people in terms of it's a very natural contraction or fear response around difficult emotions. And often when we're on our spiritual path, when we're doing our Reiki, we have a certain expectation. Certainly in the beginning, when we first start doing Reiki, we have this expectation that things are going to feel better. So that's why we do Reiki, right? We come to a Reiki class or we learn Reiki for ourselves to help us with our stress or with particular ailments, or, there's an expectation that doing Reiki is going to help us feel more settled, more calm, more relaxed, help our sleep, all the stuff that's in the marketing, right? And then, of course, once we start our Reiki journey, we realize, or any spiritual journey, not just Reiki, if you're on any journey of self-development, eventually you're going to hit what we term shadow and shadow work and the uncovering of all the repression. And we start to do this from a very, very young age. So you think about your own upbringing and perhaps the way you bring up your children completely unconsciously. So there's no blame here for you as a parent or your parents and how they parented you. But essentially, there's this ongoing suppression that we learn very early on, that difficult emotions are not okay. So whether it's when you used to cry and your parents shushed you or tried to stop your crying, or told you directly, stop crying, don't cry, especially for men, it tends to be boys don't cry. And then also even for women, it's like you shouldn't show your distress in public, or you shouldn't show your distress in front of other people. And so from a really early age, we get shut down and told that negative emotions are not okay. Now, obviously, what happens then is we suppress it because we don't express it. Then what happens is we start to layer on all of this discomfort within the body. And as we start to hit it, as it starts to start percolating up, we do anything but to feel it. So what that looks like is we distract ourselves, we, go watch TV, we jump on social media, we medicate ourselves through, drinking, smoking, drugs, whatever it is, shopping, online shopping, just going out. Even things like meditation can also be a way of not feeling your emotions, because often a lot of meditation techniques can actually turn into distraction techniques. So rather than feel the emotion, we put our focus on the present moment. And even that is like, okay, watching my breath, watching this, watching that. And if there's an uncomfortable emotion that starts bubbling up, then we focus on our breath even more, or we chant some kind of chant, or we do something else. And I'll be the first to admit, this is a go-to of mine. Or I'll read a spiritual book when I'm feeling really uncomfortable, or I'll try some law of attraction, or do some affirmations, or send Reiki to something, anything, but sit there and actually feel the extreme discomfort that comes up with difficult feelings, difficult memories, difficult whatever the repression is that's trying to be seen. So the real focus of this blah, blah, blahing is to encourage you to experiment with not doing that. And the way of diving, because often when we first hit difficult emotions, especially when we're not used to really diving into the shadow, is we don't know what to do. And certainly for me, I was like, okay, so I'm being told to feel this emotion, but how do I even feel this emotion? And it's a really tricky thing, because you'll notice that when the emotion, let's say you have a a memory that comes up of a childhood incident, or you just start to feel really lonely, or you start to feel really depressed or sad, or grief comes up. These emotions may or may not be attached to certain thoughts, images, incidents. Like you might well have an event that comes up, and then you feel really sad about it, and then what to do in that moment. So there is a skill around this, and I really encourage you to experiment. And it is a constant balancing act. So am I ruminating? So ruminating would be you go into it and you feel, let's say it's a childhood memory that made you feel really upset. And perhaps it was suppressed by a parent or an adult telling you, don't cry, don't do this. So there's a certain feeling of anger and injustice that comes up as well. Okay, so it can be really complex. So you're just observing it as it comes up, feeling the sensation in the body. And one of the things I find really helpful is, where is it in the body? So you start to really name it. Like, is it in the chest? Is it in the stomach? And how do I know it's there? So if I think, oh, it's a tightness in my chest, then it's like, okay, how does that, if I close my eyes, how do I even know it's in the chest? And maybe it moves somewhere else. So you're just following it with curiosity. When I say tightness, what does that mean? Are my muscles actually tightening around this? Or is it an impression I'm getting that it's tight, constricted? What other sensations are present? What other images are present? What thoughts are present without adding to them? So rumination is when it comes up and we get carried away with it. So it's like, let's say this childhood memory comes up, and then we start to feel it. But then as we're feeling it, a lot of thoughts start coming in. So things like, oh, that's so unfair, and she always does that. And then other images of other times that happened, and this and that is, I guess it is kind of shadow work, right? Because it's all the other stuff. You're seeing all the other stuff that you've built on that to create this massive mountain. But in this moment, what we're trying to do is we're trying to really get more familiar with the feeling of it. So then if you start to notice that you're ruminating, there's lots of other thoughts and blame and this and that, you're getting all the energy starting to build up, then that's not particularly what I'm talking about at this point. There may be another point where that's useful to see all the kind of stuff that comes up. But right now, what we're looking for is just the sense of it. And that sense of it is really diving into the experience of the emotion right now. Where is it in the body? How does it feel as you bring your attention to that, and not all the thoughts attached to it, but just the emotion as it comes up. And the reason we do that is to start to get comfortable with the difficult emotions so we don't run from them. Because the running from them, the distraction from them, the not wanting to feel them is what keeps them suppressed and keeps them not coming out. So then the shadow work, in a sense, becomes really elongated because we keep running from the emotions rather than allowing them to be present, be seen, be heard, and then be released. So this is a really important aspect of it, is having the willingness to dive in. And in the beginning, that can feel extremely challenging and difficult. But part of this practice, as you do this, is that you start to notice, oh, deep grief is deep grief, and it's okay. I don't explode. I don't die. I don't fall into a huge depression. It's like I feel the emotion, and it can feel really sticky. And that stickiness might be there for days. I'm not saying you feel it and then it goes immediately in one sitting, but it's being willing to stay with it without adding. So it's how is it just to sit with the feeling of discomfort without having to move or get up or stop, or any of that, just to be with it and see where it takes you, see what happens next. Like, what does happen next? I have this sensation in my body. Maybe I start crying. Maybe I start to feel incredibly lonely, incredibly lost. And okay, what does that feel like? Where is it in the body? What sensations are coming up for me? What other thoughts, what other images, without following them? So just letting them come up, noticing them. And then maybe even going into the idea of not only where is it in the body, but how do I know it's there? Like, where is it? If I close my eyes, is the sensation really in my stomach? Is it really in my chest? Or is it more etheric? Is it more simply a kind of tightness around thinking, around memory, around, is it real? Is it really real? And this kind of investigation can take you into really interesting ground. So the idea of this is really to get you to stop, and instead of running or stopping or distracting or deflecting or projecting, like they made me feel like this, rather than you are feeling like this. Whatever anybody else did, you're the one that's left with the feeling and the emotion and the pain in that sense. And it's only you that can excavate it, can really be with it, can accept it, can let it go. It's like that's all on you. That's the other person's long gone. The other person's not in the room with you right now. That's a memory now. And any emotion that comes up that is not attached to thinking, to thought, that's fine as well. You don't have to allocate it to a certain thought. You don't have to allocate it to a certain position or memory or anything. Oftentimes, emotions are simply in the body that have been collected over many, many years. Who knows? It might not even be yours. It might be collective. It might be ancestral. It might be karmic. So we don't have to get into that whole brain thing. What we're looking at is, can I just be with the emotion so that I can really be present for what's coming up right now, rather than running from it all the time or thinking it's something I can't handle. That gives you a lot of resilience, because as we continue on our spiritual journey, it gets more intense, actually, because you let go of a lot more of the filters and the numbness, and you get more and more and more in your body, and more present with what's happening. So you feel it more directly as an experience, rather than through all your filters of what you think and what he said and what they said and memory and image and all this stuff, which in effect puts up protective barriers in front of you, which in a way you might think, well, that sounds good. But it also puts protective barriers around you for all the good stuff too. So, it's like you can't experience joy. You can't experience true happiness or contentment, because you've got all of these filters in the way of a direct experience of your life and your life force and what's happening around you. So it's a double-edged sword, when you let go of all of this in an attempt to become more and more present, more and more alive, you're going to feel more and more alive. And that means the whole thing. That means all the stuff, the whole spectrum of emotions, the whole spectrum of stickiness of thought but then it also means when you go out in nature, you can actually see a tree, you can see a bird fully, as if it is part of your experience. It is part of your experience. It's part of you, in a sense. It's part of the life force. So if that's something that you really want to experience, and you want to really get the juice out of life and live it fully, then you need to live it fully, like the whole thing. And I think a really powerful stepping stone for that is to get comfortable and familiar with the really difficult emotions too. That kind of courage will help you enormously, because as you go deeper, that courage is going to be very much required in order for you to keep progressing or to keep deepening. And so getting familiar with it and going, oh, actually, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm still fine. I'm still here. I'm still present. It's okay. It passes. because ultimately all emotions pass, the good ones too, right? And so we just wait and we see, well, what's next and what's next and what's coming up next. And we do it with a curiosity and an openness. And then the whole thing unfolds. So hopefully that just gives you maybe a few pointers and maybe just something to think about next time you feel a difficult emotion coming up, or maybe right now, if as you're sitting here listening, you're thinking, yeah, actually there is some difficulty right now, and I'm not turning to face it. I keep on hoping it will just go away if I look at Netflix or something like this, or get on my phone, and just see next time a difficult emotion comes up, just don't move away from it, move into it, move towards it, look, face it, and just feel it, and really feel it, and just feel, okay, is this not okay? What's not okay about this right now? And then just see what happens. So thank you so much for listening, for watching, and take care.